Hey everyone, welcome to episode 308, The Learning Lab. Welcome to the Harmony in the Home podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Hutchison. I'm a counselor, a life coach, and most importantly, an imperfect mom doing this work right along with you. And my goal on our podcast is to go from chaos to calm, feel less frazzled, and have more fun within your four walls to have more harmony in your home. So before we start talking about the Learning Lab, I want to talk to you about letter writing, which I've been talking about it for weeks, if not months. I love teaching people how to do this as a side gig to help with different costs, or if you're saving for something, or just take the edge off of your bills so they don't feel so overwhelming. And for me, it's very relaxing and therapeutic to do it. And I was getting overwhelmed sharing about it because I was trying to explain it on email and back and forth. And I was having such a hard time doing it. I don't think I was doing a very good job. So what I did is I created an 18-minute video. I think it's 18 minutes. Listen to me on 2X. My voice is for me, it's a little hard to listen to, but if you listen to it on 2X, my voice isn't so grating on the nerves. It goes over the main topics of what this letter writing is, who I'm writing to, why I'm writing, how you get paid. Now, other people that have been doing it have been getting paid, and that brings me so much joy I can't even describe. I get more excited about their drops than I get about my drops, because when I was doing it, I knew there was risk involved and I didn't really know what I didn't know. And so I was just going in blindly. And if I lost money, I lost money. But then I ended up not losing money. And I was like, oh, wait, this thing's legit. Oh my gosh. So I started sharing with other people, and I knew people were only doing it because they trusted me, because it's very outside the box. And then once they started getting drops, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And it's so fun to share it with other people. It's very much a side gig. It's not something you quit your job over. It's for entertainment purposes only. You cannot lose money if you follow the training exactly. It's not gambling, which most people think it is. I'm not a gambler. I would not talk to people about gambling. So if you're interested in the letter writing, it's very relaxing. It's very much an escape. It's all offline. Well, I should say it's all off social media. And there's no quotas. There's no sales. You don't have to share with anybody. If you want to share it with other people, that's a separate part of the letter writing. But just in letter writing, I can tell you who to write to, who pays out faster, who takes a little bit longer, but they pay out a little bit more. I have been obsessed with this topic since October, if not before that, because even before I signed up, I was obsessed with just learning and studying and learning and studying and watching and studying. And should I? I sat on the fence for probably 3 months. So I get it. And then I just was like, you know what? I'm going to jump in. I'm never going to tell anybody about it. I barely told anybody in my family that I was doing it. I was like, I'm just going to be the guinea pig. And then when I didn't feel like writing, I was like, guinea pig, hashtag guinea pig, hashtag guinea pig, hashtag guinea pig. And then I was really doing it for Lily to see if it'd be something that she would want to do when she turns 18. And then about 3-4 months in, after I started doing it and started getting drops, they changed the age for most of them to 21. So I was like, womp womp, but I fell in love with it in the process, and I've been having a ball ever since. I feel like I'm having an affair with the envelopes, because I'm always trying to find what cracks. I look at my day. I'm like, okay, where are my cracks in my day? What does my day look like? Where am I meeting with clients? When am I working out? I do very much block planning. When am I making dinner? Who has sports? Where am I driving? Is there a gap in time where I'm sitting in the car waiting for them to come out of practice, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm having so much fun with it. But again, it's not for everybody. So if this sounds like something that you'd be interested in, send me an email at coachingkelly@aol.com, or on Instagram or Facebook or smoke signals if it sounds like something that you would like to do. But again, it's not for everybody. I totally get it, because some people are more outgoing and more extroverted than me. And I am turning into an introvert in my elderly years, in my 50s, and I'm loving it. My introvert self loves it. So if you're interested, let me know. So I want to talk to you about something that I saw on Instagram, I believe. And of course, I'm going to credit where I saw it. And it was about how we're living in a learning lab, and our kids are it's called living in the lab. And it's remind me of the Gottman Institute. They had a love lab where they would go in and they would have couples have an argument, so to speak, not like start an argument, but something that they've been arguing about over the last year or two, or the last couple of years, that keeps coming up, and going through it. Like, last week when you did this really bothered me. And then seeing how they argue. And then they came up with the 4 horsemen of conflict. which I've done in other episodes and I can do in future episodes if you're interested. But Gottman was able to predict with like a 90-something, very high 90s percentage of success rate if this marriage was going to last or not based on what they were arguing about, but how they argued. And this is what it reminded me of when I saw this Instagram. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the Gottman Institute. It's called Living in the Lab. Here, I'll let you listen to it and then I'll talk to you on the other side of it.
All right, I got a word for all the parents out there. And I need to hear this too. But you got to remember something. In your house, when your kids are disrespectful and they're not listening to you and they're doing the opposite of everything you want them to do and they're being mean to each other and mean to you, you are living in the lab. That is the lab. This is where kids figure out how to be humans. They figure out how to be themselves. Do not lose sight of that. It is so important to remember that, because when they go out in the world and you're like, wow, what a sweet kid, and the teachers speak so well of them, or they have good friends and people want to be with them, that's real life. The house is not real life. That's the workshop. Remember that and be encouraged to that, because it's going to be hard. It's supposed to be hard, but that's our job to help guide and shape. You're doing a good job. Keep doing it.
Isn't that good? This is from Dave Barnes Music. I've never heard of him before, but when we think of our family, and I've talked about this in the episode called Blueprint for Love, and I think this is really important that we are not dealing with fully functioning adult-sized humans. When we look at our kids and we think of them as little adults, that's not really fair for them, because they're not little adults. They are little kids or little teens who are trying to figure out how to manage their time, their emotions, their energy, their sports, their schoolwork, balance of life. And they have to keep doing what we talked about in episode 307 of the keep starting over. If you watch your kids in sports of how much they have to fail forward, we have to realize that when they're doing sports, and I always say this about sports, when they're doing sports or band or any type of extracurricular or student government, whatever it is that they're doing outside of school and even in school, we have to look at that as the lessons that they're learning have nothing to do with the sport that they're playing. I've always said that I learned more on the soccer field than I ever did in any classroom. What does that mean? Does that mean I learned how to be a good soccer player? It has nothing to do with soccer. Soccer was the vehicle to teach me the lessons of teamwork, getting along with people that I don't agree with, or that they get on my nerves, or I'm getting on other people's nerves. Failing forward, losing with grace, winning with grace, doing one more lap around the soccer field when I'm exhausted, teaching grit, teaching that never give up energy, creating balance, creating patterns. That's all things that sports are teaching us. And so when we look at what we're teaching our kids when we're having them clean up their room or manage their laundry or manage their time or doing their homework, when we can look at it beyond they're giving us an attitude because of what we're asking them to do, we can look at it more as we're teaching healthy habits. And the best way to teach healthy habits is to model and embody it for yourself. But just like any boss-employee relationship, we do not learn from our bosses through yelling, screaming, nagging, cajoling, a jerky boss, so to speak. So we can't be a jerky parent and expect that our kids are just going to comply and be like, you know what, Mom, that's a really good idea. You know what, Dad, that's a really good idea. You've been really awesome to me this last week or so, so I'm going to do what you ask because I trust you, you're on my side. When we are yelling and screaming and being a jerk to our kids because we're stressed out in another area of our life, they will learn to tune us out, just like we would if we had a boss and they were being a jerk to us, or they were being cranky to us, or they were yelling at us, or they were nagging us. They weren't throwing any sprinkles of like encouragement or like atta-girl or atta-boy energy. So when we look at the energy we're bringing to the relationship and we look at it as a learning lab that we are in, and we're not dealing with co-workers. We are not dealing with employees at the same mindset as us, the same age as us. But a lot of times we look at our little humans and we think because they're not doing this in this area of their life, then that means I'm somehow failing as a parent. when that's just their natural progression. We make their journey all about us because we're so afraid of messing it up. So we parent from that fear-based place. And that's ironically where we're messing it up, because we have so much ego, so much fear, so much wrapped up in they need to represent me so they can make me feel like a good parent. And that is very, very short lasting. It's like having a bucket with holes in it. And you might get that atta girl from a parent or a teacher, another parent or another teacher, and that will fill you up like, hey, I'm doing a good job. But when you don't think it yourself, then that compliment or that encouragement or that atta girl that's coming from outside is very short-lived. And then the next time our kids act up or act disrespectful, then we flip out and make it mean something about us and our worthiness and our value. The goal is to create a separate entity from them, and we are just two souls having a human experience, and look at it like, hey, what do I want to model and embody for them to absorb from me? What are they absorbing from me that I need to tweak? If you're yelling and screaming and your kids are yelling and screaming, you could look at yourself and be like, where could I tone that down? If you're not yelling and screaming and you have a kid that yells and screams, then you know that they're not absorbing it from you. And it's like, oh, this is something that they're having a hard time with. This is something that they're having a hard time not giving me a hard time with. And when you look at your house as a lab, as a learning lab of where they're learning how to manage their emotions, how to manage their time, how to manage their room. Managing their room is a smaller version of how they're going to manage their house. And how you engage during conflict, kind of like the Gottman Institute, is how they are going to engage with conflict when they get older, because it's going to feel very normal for them. It's going to feel very natural. It's going to feel like the only way. Because when we are younger, we don't know any different. And then we get older, and probably around the teenage years, we start comparing and it's like, oh, their house is a little different. Oh, that's a little different. Oh, I wonder why that coach is yelling at me. That's really strange that they just yelled at me like that. I've never been yelled at before. So we want them to go and recreate the environment and the energy that we create, because they don't know any different. That's such a gift for us that they don't know any different. So then we create this blueprint, so to speak, of what they grow up and they go recreate. Sometimes you learn from examples, sometimes you learn from non-examples. So they're going to learn both, but you want to have the examples be more than the non-examples. So when you look at your home as a learning lab, and then almost like, you know how they say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree? What happens in life is, yes, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So we want to make sure that our tree is filled with all of the nutrients that we want them to absorb from us, of love, of kindness, of patience, of not losing our cool, even when things get hot under the collar. We want them to absorb that all from us. And then what's going to happen is that apple falls out of that tree and plants new seeds. And then our roots are always connected. But the seed from that apple that fell out of the tree, then they're going to go recreate their own family tree. Our roots are always connected, but then they're going to create their own tree. And based on the nutrients that they got from the first tree, that will carry over into their tree, into their future family, their future relationships. It could be in their coworker relationships. It could be their love relationships. It could be in their friendships. We want to set the norm. We want to set the default pattern to be one of love, kindness, forgiveness, good energy, good traits, time management, all of the good stuff that we want them to absorb from us. There will also be stuff in there that we don't want them to absorb from us, but they still will. And that's okay. That's part of the human experience. You had your own human experience where you grew up in a tree. You didn't know any different. You absorbed a lot. And now you're creating your own tree. And without consciousness, you'll recreate the same exact tree. And some trees, we want to recreate 100% blueprint. But some trees, not so much. So that's where consciousness comes in, is like, hey, this was really awesome about my childhood and my parents and my upbringing. And this part really was not. So it's kind of like the facts of life. You take the good, you take the bad, you take them both, and there you have the facts of life. So you take the good that you absorbed. And if you had a not so great childhood, you could look at the resilience and the grit and the way that you overcame it as something you want to create in your own four walls now. Because you have nothing to do with the four walls that you grew up in. You literally just dropped, like that movie, Boss Baby. Oh yeah, when they're dressed in the little tuxedo. But think about it, you just slid down in chutes and ladders, and you just plopped in that house. You have no control over that house that you slid down that chutes and ladders down. But now that you're a grown up, you have control over the environment that you're creating. And that, I have to say, is the most empowering, enjoyable part of parenting. It's like, I get to write the script here. I get to show up in the way that either you needed when you were younger or that you enjoyed when you were younger, and recreate the parts you loved and then tweak the parts that you didn't. And if you didn't love any of it, then you get to write from a blank slate and show up and reparent yourself in the way that you need to be parented. And that, my friend, is true freedom and empowerment. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye. Hey, mamas, thanks for listening. If you had any ahas, clicks, or those lightning bolt moments while listening, you have to check out my free parenting bootcamp, where we take all of this to the next level and we try to create even more awakenings for ourselves so that we can connect more with our kids and never yell at them again. You can sign up at www.coachingkelly.com. And if you really want to fill up my love cup, send me an email of what your aha was, what your click was, what was that lightning bolt moment while you were listening. I want nothing more in life than for you to have harmony in your home and to learn how to be an imperfect mom like me, which allows your kids to be imperfect too, each and every day. Thanks for listening.